Welcome back, ladies and gents. I'm Hatz, your friendly neighborhood hat man. Here we are, back again for part 3 of the Gypsy Rose Prison Confessions, exploring the initial backstory of Gypsy Rose's emergence into the public eye via the documentary recorded before her release. That, coupled with the latest series, Life After Lockup, presented quite a sanitized version of her life up to that point, portraying her as the abused child of a mother suffering, supposedly, from Munchausen's by proxy. An abused child who, after years of apparent abuse and exploitation, decided her only way out was to murder her own mother. Obviously, as we've seen already, there were people who believed the story without question, but there's also people sharing insights that already poke holes into Gypsy's claims. The inference being that she was completely invested in a mother-daughter scam for cash and property that exploited thousands of generous donors. And once her mother was out of the equation, the only real teller of the story and what went on within that household is Gypsy herself. A nice, packaged little story where she was almost entirely the victim, who was preyed upon because of her ignorance and unquestioning love for her mommy. A love so unquestioning that she plotted her mother's murder for months and groomed a guy with severe learning and emotional disabilities to carry out the deed for her, even though she was completely physically capable of doing it herself. So, now we move on to the next step of the interviews with Gypsy and family in the lead up to her, spoilers, successful parole hearing.
Once she got me inside the house, she chained me to the bed.
We both went into the men's stall. It was the first time that I had ever seen a penis other than what happened with my grandfather. I saw her gun on the table and I pulled the trigger.
Your soul is mine.
To me, I will never get tired of that. So, on this episode, we can look forward to her recounting that time when she knobbed a guy in the bathroom, with a brief throwback to her claims that Grandpappy molested her. Whether that's true or not, only the two of them know. Then the tales of her being chained to the bed after escaping look like they're going to be explained away, something I've heard similar claims about involving someone else completely unconnected to this.
They're going to hurt me for a crime that I was a witness to.
And apparently, a gun randomly left out that, Gypsy was going to use to kill her mom? But instead went with the, let me get a guy I've been playing with on the internet to stab her a bazillion times because that's so much better.
When I was younger, my mother told me flat out, there are some things that you will never do. But a year after release, I expect myself to be fully independent and have my own place, my own car, earning my own money.
Well, prediction sort of came true. She's certainly got her own home, her own money. I assume she has her own car and can drive now. So I guess there are perks to come with having reality TV networks watching your every move and paying for the pleasure of doing so. But it's not exactly a 9-to-5 job, is it? Just indulge in some household chores, wander around shopping or doing social things for the first time, complete with camera crew in tow. Oh, and yes, get pregnant so a bunch of people can go, look at the cute little baby. Meanwhile, a whole load of other people are praying the kid has its dad's nose and won't one day get murked by a gypsy or find itself the victim.
My mother cooked, cleaned, did everything. I did nothing. And I have this opinion about myself that I have to lean on everybody for support because I just don't feel like I could do it on my own and do it correct.
So, mom was momming and taking care of you like they tend to do, and you did nothing, which, in fairness, a lot of kids do nothing. But the opinion of having to lean on everyone to do everything because you can't isn't so much an opinion as a fact. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I've seen enough clips from the follow-up Life After Lockup to know that you can't or couldn't do much for yourself and relied on other people to basically carry your big-nosed ass. It can all be summed up by the existence of the show itself, because without that, what would you even be doing? Working in an office, supermarket, your bedroom doing OnlyFans? I suspect 2 out of the 3 would be impossible for you to do, and the remaining one you should be preemptively banned from having an account.
How are you?
I'm
I'm good. When you do get out, I'm definitely always going to be a big part of your life. But what do you think? You're going to need from me as a father. I wasn't the best dad. Should have went check, and I had suspicions. I'm not trying to make excuses, but it was hard not to believe Dee Dee. Doctors believed that. Her friends, neighborhood, everyone believed.
Back over to Dad, who now intends to be a part of her life and be there for her and provide, I assume, unconditional support. So potentially enabling just what she said before, that she will rely on other people to take care of her and do things for her. Yeah, man, she's your kid and you just sat back while she was moved from pillar to post around the country by her mother. What, you didn't object, kick up a stink, or do something to prevent it from happening just so you could see your kid? Maybe I'm being cynical, but, maybe if you'd cared more at the time, maybe you'd have had some influence over things that happened. But then, that's the thing with hindsight. You can say what you should have done or recognize that weren't quite right at the time, or you can present whatever narrative you like now where there isn't anything to the contrary.
My mother lied about my age when I thought that I was 15. I found my Medicaid card and it said that I was actually 19. At that time, I met this guy, Dan, at Vision Con, and he kept telling me, you're an adult and you can leave. And so I ran away. I thought that it was a possibility that he was the one, but he doesn't even have a car. He doesn't even have a place of his own. He's staying at his friend's house. Okay, this is not what I expected at all.
I did bring this up last time that I find it hard to believe that someone in their teens would not know their age. If it was something that stretched back to, early years of life, then it might be plausible. But when you're a teenager and you have a birthday party 1 year celebrating you being, 16 years old, only for the next year you're being told that you're 13 or 14, it just doesn't make sense. And wasn't Dan the guy in the last episode who she was talking to online and believed she was like 15 or something? Even though legally she was an adult, but believed she was a child, and so did he. But anyway, even in her sheltered world, priorities. Does he have a car? No. Does he have his own home? No. Oh, that's not what she expected. Well, that's a pity. Poor little Gypsy, wanting everything providing for and handing to her from the off. And given she walked straight into a reality TV show and a life effectively being paid for upon her release, it's unlikely she'll ever understand the concept of earning a living.
About 8 o'clock in the morning, she arrives in the door, and at this point, me and him are sleeping. His friend was like, your mother is here. First thing I say to her is, I know I'm 19 and I can be here if I want to. We go sit on the porch and she's like, if you come back with me, I will let you see him. And at that point, I believed her. I was completely dependent on her. And so I went back with her.
Completely dependent? Well, perhaps up to a point, since it seems fairly clear that Dee Dee was in charge when it came to controlling the money, and it would be hard to do that without the cash cow that a crippled child provided. But the fact Gypsy made plans to run away, snaffled money to do so, and escaped to her disappointing boyfriend shows she wasn't really that dependent after all. I mean, she was perfectly capable of making her own decisions, absconding with money, getting taxis, buses, or however the hell she got there. Yeah, she could make decisions and act on them is the point, right? But in this case, the choices she made didn't really pay dividends because she found herself shacked up with some guy who had no car and was living with his friends. Hardly the life she might have envisioned, being a kept woman and able to exert her own control and influence on the household, much like she'd grown up witnessing her own mother do. Like mommy, like daughter, right?
Of course, Gypsy would concede after that episode, and even others where she tried to get a little bit of independence, because her utter survival depended on her mother.
Nope, it didn't. She literally just proved that she was prepared to leave home, travel across town, state, or wherever the hell Dan the pseudoped was living, and get the hell out of there. She took money that she knew she'd need, but when she got to her destination, it just wasn't all it cracked up to be. So when mommy came a-calling, she figured the devil she knew, because the glimpse of an alternate future for herself simply wasn't good enough. Oh, she was more than capable of surviving, and going back with her mother just shows she saw the easier and more comfortable path to doing so. And as a side note, I really wouldn't be comfortable with this woman as a therapist. She seems awfully predisposed to just reinforce the victim narrative and present Gypsy as some completely helpless waif.
On the way back, I was confronting her about my age. I never confronted her before that point, and she tried to convince me otherwise. And so she stopped at a Staples, and she had a copy of my birth certificate. And she comes out about 10 minutes later, and it says 1995.
How did she modify it?
I'm thinking whiteout. She said, here's your actual birth certificate, and I'm your mother. You should trust me. If you didn't believe me, now here's proof.
Did you believe her?
I did believe her, yes.
Did you though? Did you really? Because you knew when your birthdays were, you knew what age you were celebrating in previous years, you'd seen one form of documentation, and now your mom magically presents a modified birth certificate and you just believe it. But to try and spin it off as being modified via whiteout? I mean, come on. How stupid do you think people are? Oh, wait, what's she been doing with her entire life? Paint over a couple of digits and then write over them and suddenly it's plausible. Or doing that, then photocopying the modified version so the deterioration in quality masks some of the modifications. And if that image was a scan of the certificate, then it's still obvious that the year's been tampered with. No, Gypsy, you knew she was lying. You remembered your previous birthdays and you saw that certificate. If this event even happened.
I think Gypsy had Stockholm Syndrome, which is the term that's applied to people who are kidnapped and held hostage, where they fall in love with their captor. And it's counterintuitive. And so people tend to blame the victim. Well, why did you stay? But Gypsy loved her mother.
Of course that's going to be the diagnosis, or at least a theorized one. It perpetuates the victim narrative and is fueled by a disbelief that a young woman would be a party to a massive organized fraud. Is there the possibility it's true? Of course. Is it likely? I don't think so. Had things not concluded the way they did with her planning a murder followed by a PR sanitation plan that would look to absolve her of all responsibility, then maybe, the shrink's assessment would have more merit. It's not Stockholm Syndrome to plot over a period of months how you're going to kill your mother.
There was absolutely a fear on Dee Dee's part that she was starting to lose control of Gypsy, and also really fear that she would lose the sickness in her child, which was her lifeline. It was her reason to live. And so she had to teach Gypsy a lesson.
I think maybe the head doctor's right. Dee Dee feared she was losing control. The gravy train was in danger of coming off the tracks because Gypsy wanted more for herself, which is typical for most people as they grow up. Their views and their wants don't align with the parents. Sure, Gypsy still wanted a nice life whereby someone else was providing for her 24/7, but she was getting to a point where she wanted the control now and didn't want someone controlling her anymore. Just like the Sith, there are only two, a master and an apprentice, and Gypsy was getting fed up of being the apprentice.
Once she got me inside the house, she chained me to the bed. She smashed my computer and my cell phone, and I was chained for 2 weeks.
What did she use to bind you to the bed?
Handcuffs and a dog leash.
Trashing the computer and the phone. Yes, I can believe that. I mean, she wouldn't be the first parent in history to be annoyed with their offspring to the point they destroy a toy or gadget that's been causing the problems. The chaining to the bed, that sounds a bit more implausible. Not impossible, just implausible. I mean, I'm in two minds on that claim because handcuffs aren't exactly hard to get a hold of, and I don't even want to think about why Dee Dee had handcuffs because that just opens up a whole mental can of worms that is just gross, and I don't want to know what she had handcuffs for. The dog leash is the part which sounds weirdest to me because unless I've completely missed it somewhere, which is always possible, they didn't have a dog, did they? And if they didn't have a dog, why have they got a dog leash? I mean, I don't recall any mention of them having a dog, so yeah, maybe I missed it, and that's then suddenly it all makes sense. But yeah, at least we can put to rest where Adrasdi got her claims of being chained to the bed by Kenneth McBride after the two of them carried out their own murderous plot.
Did you know that Dee Dee punished her by chaining her to the bed for 2 weeks?
Whoa, I didn't notice she had chained her to the bed for 2 weeks. Now that's all going through my head now, thinking about it. Just I could see it taking place. It's terrible. Crazy. What a mom. What a mom.
I felt
enraged. I was angry. She didn't have to go through that.
Mission accomplished, narrative established, something that only two people in the universe could confirm or deny, one of whom is dead. But the end result is fanning the flames of outrage. Poor Gypsy. She was chained to the bed, never mind the little murder that would follow.
My mother never laid a hand on me until my attempt to run away. Anything that she found displeasing, she would hit me. And it would either be with coat hanger, it would be with her hand. She would punch my leg in the thigh.
No physical abuse took place at all until that moment. None at all. So you never defied her before, never answered back, never broke something. Until the great failed escape, she never laid a hand on you. But now she's chaining you up and beating you on the regular. Don't buy it. I don't buy it. If it had been happening before the runaway attempt, then I might give it some credence. I might even buy an instance of rage and a beating to follow, but it becoming a regular thing after that trigger point, when it hadn't been for almost 2 decades before that? No, I don't believe that. Sounds more like folding in aspects of domestic violence for yet another sympathy grift.
I promise I won't do it again. I'll be good. I will never talk to Dan again, to the point where she believed me enough to start allowing me little freedoms, like going to the bathroom on my own, taking a bath on my own. So leaving her sight for small amounts of time until she took me off the chain completely.
Dee Dee was very controlling, but yet dependent. And so there's going to be pretty harsh punishment and abuse if, she defies her mother.
Let's just say, for the sake of argument, this is all true. Certainly, I believe that Dee Dee would be paranoid about Gypsy running away or defying her again. Whether it was solely a need for control or a fear of the whole fraudulent house of cards collapsing and her losing all the free stuff she was receiving, I can totally buy that she would be trying to watch everything. So I'm inclined to believe some element of this happened, even if it was just the constant micromanagement and monitoring, because I think this is probably the point where those first murderous fantasies started to come about.
My mother put a voodoo hex on me. She printed out a picture of Dan, and she printed out a picture of me, and she went to the store and got a mason jar and a cow tongue. She put the cow tongue in the mason jar with the 2 pictures and a little bit of my menstrual blood.
Yum, cow tongue wrapped in uterine lining. I wonder what's for dessert.
Put it in a mason jar, buried it in the backyard, and said that you will never find love. You will never be happy. So I think that it's true.
Well, I can't attest to the happy part. That's an eye of the beholder type of thing. But finding love? Yeah, you're doing too well on that front, are you? But we'll laugh more at that when I get onto her romantic exploits, such as they are, when they let her crazy ass out of there.
Many men write to me in prison. That's how I met Ken. We got engaged in 2019. It didn't work out, and he left me, and it broke my heart. And so it's like I always bring it back to that curse where I'm like, I believe it's true.
The introduction, albeit fleetingly. I believe this guy crops up periodically throughout the Gypsy saga, especially once she's out in the land of the free once again. But yeah, simps are gonna simp. Sometimes it's for e-thoughts shaking their titties on camera, and sometimes it's for the weird squeaky woman who acts like a child, which is concerning on a whole different level. Point being, it's not your mother's curse that's the problem. Well, beyond the whole birthing and raising you part, but it may be more down to the tendency to kill people who get in your way. Sorry, I mean tendency to get someone else to kill the people who get in your way.
When I was a kid, I seen Dee Dee playing with the Ouija board and spells and playing people over to get what she wanted, maybe mind control and controlling these doctors and controlling this whole world around her like a puppeteer was probably very satisfying to her.
Well, plot twist, witchcraft spells and mind control over the doctors, all of the doctors. I'm sure she'd be thrilled to achieve that. My God, the whole family is retarded.
At this point, there was a significant part of our relationship that I believe broke. I'm like, well, I can just wait till she passes away naturally, but I didn't know how long that was going to be. She could have lived to be 70 years old, and by that time I would be too old to do the things that I would want, like have children and have a life of my own.
I knew it. She was now imagining life without Mom and fantasizing about her being dead. Maybe not quite reaching the heights of plotting assassinations yet, but a good first step.
She took every precaution that she could to make sure that I had no attempts to reach anyone by social media or phone at all. My mom bought a gun. I was afraid that she would kill me. I wanted to reach out to people, but I couldn't. And you don't know if someone is going to help you or not. It is an incredibly lonely and hopeless feeling to feel like you are trapped. And it's exactly how I felt.
Foundations being laid. Mom bought a gun. I felt trapped. I was afraid. All very good prerequisites if you want to establish mitigation for why your LARPing is the Terminator.
It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse.
I was an assistant manager at the movie theater in Springfield, Missouri. I was in charge of promotions. They were at the theater quite a bit. At times, they would come 3 times a week. And I've asked myself more than one time, would I have believed Gypsy if she would have pulled me aside? And the thing that people have to understand is that Dee Dee set it up, that Gypsy was mentally challenged. It seemed genuine. It really seemed for real. So I don't know if I would have. And that hurts my heart. It really does.
God damn, I can't believe The Dark Knight is that old. But at least this woman's being honest, I guess. The narrative was laid out for Gypsy being special, so she admits she might not have believed her if she did try to reach out for help. And I suppose that might be the thinking of a lot of people when this child is being presented to you by a parent who's saying, yeah, she's cuckoo and basically broken in body and head. And when you're being told that, all you're going to see is the supposedly sick, apparently fragile childlike persona who's being cared for devotedly by her mother. So then, if the kid does turn around and says, it's all a lie, will they be taken seriously? Maybe not. But she was obviously articulate, and she could easily disprove some of the lies simply by standing up, considering that she was supposedly disabled and couldn't walk at all. But it's all hypothetical anyway, because the bottom line is that Gypsy didn't tell anyone, and she didn't try to expose the scam. But what she did do was plot a murder.
So this is one of my promotional albums, and it has some of Gypsy's pictures in it because, of course, she was an integral part in a lot of our promotions. This one was for the Leukemia Society, and we did Over the Rainbow, and all of the proceeds went to the Leukemia Society. At the time, my sister had leukemia, and so when Dee Dee said, yes, she has leukemia, and so that kind of struck a chord with me. And we wanted to do what we could do for them.
If there's ever an example of how reprehensible the scam being run was, it's something like that. While Dee Dee's pretending to the world her daughter has any number of ailments, including cancer, they're benefiting at the expense of people who are actually suffering and dying from cancer. They're getting sympathy from the loved ones of those people who have cancer and just trading off the back of it. You're disgusting.
I told Dee Dee, you're never going to be able to work. You're taking care of Gypsy 24/7. I'm going to give you everything I can. I was giving her $1,100 or $1,200 a month.
We would always raise money for him. And Gypsy did actually become kind of a symbol of hope for us.
Dee Dee was defrauding a whole bunch of people. Dee Dee's ability to manipulate people was unrivaled with anything I've ever seen.
I suppose I shouldn't be surprised that Gypsy's lawyer would throw a load of blame on Dee Dee. I mean, after all, he's supposed to be loyal to his client first, and in this case, that means establishing her as just another victim, perhaps even the biggest victim of Dee Dee's scams.
Dee Dee presented as a chameleon where people around her thought she was a Mother of the Year, but did not see the other part or side of this woman who was handcuffing her daughter for weeks at a time. So I believe that Dee Dee was perhaps a psychopath. She had no conscience. and she would do anything to keep her daughter under wraps.
Well, he is the specialist, so what he says must be right? There's probably some validity in what he's saying, but you can't get away from what he's concluding is based on secondhand information, reports and statements given after the fact, and quite likely Gypsy's own testimony and interviews. He has no first-hand interaction with Dee Dee, not saying he's wrong, but to the layman it appears very much that he's apportioning pretty much 100% of the blame on Dee Dee and absolving Gypsy of any and all responsibility. That she could have done things to end the charade or extract herself from the situation seems to be a complete non-factor going by what he's saying.
I decided to run away again, and I packed my bag. One night, she had a suspicion, and she found my bag. Like, a million things were going through my mind of how bad this was going to be. And I saw her gun on the table, and that's when I grabbed the gun. I pulled the trigger as many times as I could. When I shot my mother, I just remember thinking, like, oh my God, did I just do that? What did I just do? A couple of them hit her, a couple of them hit the wall. That's when I realized it was a BB gun. And it made me feel relieved because I did not intend to kill her. But the point is I was shocked that I pulled the trigger at all.
Well, I didn't intend to kill her. I just pulled the trigger multiple times while pointing a gun at her and not realizing until afterwards that it was only a BB gun.
Yeah, bollocks. Next, you'll be telling me that you didn't mean to tell the guy on the internet exactly how he should stab your mother a few dozen times while she slept.
I really felt like there was no escaping the situation. I thought that I would live forever at home with her. So I needed to go online again. Online, I could be the gypsy that has all these friends, the version of myself that is normal.
Sounds like we're now building towards the end game, an attempt to kill her mother despite what she claims. You don't pull the trigger of a gun you believe be real at someone without wanting to kill them. And now a need to get back online to find freedom, and we know how this ends up, but indulge me.
And she took her sleeping meds that she takes every night, and I went to my bedroom. And I started talking with a neighbor on Facebook about Dan. She's like, oh, you should get on that online dating website called ChristianDatingForFree.com. And after looking at a couple of dozen profiles, I came across a profile that stood out. It's silly. One thing that attracted me is he plays video games. Like it's special or something.
ChristianDating.com, where you can meet men and possibly women with murderous tendencies. Sign up now to meet the psycho of your dreams. Not exactly the best advertisement for romance of the religious kind, but hey, what can you do? And don't besmirch us gamers. We're not all crazy. Mostly.
I sent him a message that just said, hi, my name is Gypsy. And he sent me a message back saying, hi, my name is Nicholas. And we started communicating via this website.
It was at that moment he didn't realize he fucked up.
Again, I was in that mindset that, oh, this is my knight in shining armor. So when one of his ex-girlfriends actually messaged me on Facebook, I didn't listen to her. I thought she was a jaded ex. She told me that he is violent, that he's verbally abusive. Even though those red flags, I saw them, I ignored them because of this notion that I had found love at first sight.
Found love at first sight. Or Patsy you could manipulate while receiving blind attention and devotion. You know, I'm going to give her just a little benefit of the doubt and assume that she wasn't, at least not yet, thinking about getting Nick to do her mom for her. Kill her. Not the other thing.
Love could be painful first with Nick. And then in prison, the relationship that I had with Ken, I was still so naive. But now I have had time to reflect on the past. 6 months ago, I met a man named Ryan. He is a Southern Louisiana boy. And he's just like, I heard your story and I wanted to get to know you. And so we started dating, but I am taking it slowly.
Love is painful at times. Yes, it can be, but probably not as painful as 70 stab wounds or thereabouts, and I know we'll be seeing a lot more of Ryan in the future. To say he heard her story and wanted to get to know her is just part of this whole real-life car crash that is now her life. The part he didn't tell her, however, was that getting it on with a mom murker in prison is probably the best, if not the only chance he has to score.
So eventually I stole cash from my mother's wallet, and when my mom and I made a trip to Walmart and she let me go to the bathroom, and I went to the electronics department and tried to get cash for a cell phone, and from then on I could text Nick through Yahoo Messenger.
You know, she's quite the little one-woman crime spree. Fraud, theft, murder. Not bad for someone who presents to the world as an intellectually stunted cripple with every disease known to man. I'm surprised she didn't actually just steal the phone.
And at this point, my mother had scheduled more surgeries, more medication. I was scheduled for another procedure to have on my throat.
It was going to be a surgeon to look into why I have such a high-pitched voice, because it was something to do that my larynx didn't close properly. I have a big fear of tubes being put down my throat or my nose or anything.
You know, I'm going to sympathize with her on this one. The idea of something being put up my nose or down my throat, just nope. You're going to have to knock my ass out or sedate me all the way in the Twilight Zone. That aside, though, more surgery and for apparently superfluous reasons, so I don't know what the rationale behind it was, but why are doctors and surgeons so eager to cut? I mean, is it just another paycheck for them? I mean, I don't know.
Sad that she opened up to Nick. I wish she could have, come to me, but I guess she felt comfortable enough that she can open up to him and trusted him.
It would have made killing off her mom a little more difficult if she didn't confide in Nick and earn his trust. I mean, it's not like she could have convinced you to do it for her, or maybe she could. Or maybe you just weren't really there and you didn't really care that much until shit went down.
At this point, Gypsy has lived in this toxic bubble with her mother, and she's starving for some type of affection. Anyone with any just sliver of interest in Gypsy, she would probably rush to.
For a moment, I wasn't sure I was still watching the right thing or whether I'd accidentally switched over to someone analyzing the behavior of one Jonathan J.P. Haldeman. The similarities described there are frightening. But yes, starved for attention, jumping on it like a rabid rabbit. When you find it, yeah, makes sense, even if we overlook the clear lack of any cognitive decision-making on her part.
Nick was a little different. After about 3 months, there was a certain phrase that I had to repeat after every conversation. And if I didn't say this phrase the way he had instructed me to say it, he would get very verbally aggressive.
What was the phrase?
I love and adore you, my King Charming. Good night.
Stereotypical nerd and all-around weirdo, though apparently not an incel since he was talking to her and also had an ex-girlfriend. But it's okay, though, Gypsy. You just make sure to present him in the worst light you can, kind of like you did at his trial and led to him going to prison forever while you get out. Now, it doesn't mean that he might not have been a douche in what he was saying or even doing, but little Princess Innocence here seems to forget that she was the mastermind behind Operation Mommy Murking.
Nick and Dee Dee have a lot in common. They're manipulative, aggressive, controlling, and that's a comfort zone for Gypsy.
Well, from what I understand, Nick is also fundamentally retarded with an IQ of like 70, if that. So who's the really manipulative one here? The dork on the internet with multiple personalities plus an inability to regulate himself and his behaviors? Or the scheming young bitch who has lied to everyone for years pretending that she was crippled when she wasn't, snuck off to buy phones to communicate secretly on the internet as well as run away from home and travel across town or state, and who ultimately will be the one who completely plans her own mother's murder? But Nick has a penis, therefore he's the manipulative one. Case closed.
Gypsy was submissive by nature, so she would certainly be at risk to gratify her partner as she always gratified her mother's wishes.
I was a perfect candidate for what he wanted.
Oh yes, she gratified her mother's wishes by shooting her 10 times with a BB gun, believing it was real, and then claiming that she didn't want to kill her. And she's the perfect candidate for what he wanted. Yes, horny young male on the internet basically just wants to empty his nuts. But let's just gloss over that you also happen to be the perfect candidate for what she wanted.
But looking back, I feel like Nick is a very disturbed person that lives in his own created fantasy world, and he doesn't want to acknowledge the difference between what's right and wrong.
Oh, you did not just say that. You manipulate the guy with major psychological issues and major intellectual impairment who lives in his own fantasy world. You manipulate him into following your instructions to the detail in killing your mother. Yes, no doubt he was very disturbed, probably more so now, given that he took someone's life on behalf of a girl that he believed he was in love with, only for her to reject and betray him, so he wound up locked up forever, while she gets out after a few years to live a nice, cushy life on reality TV, when everybody fawns over her and goes, "Aw, you're so strong, you were such a victim, you're a survivor. Get bent, bitch."
Nick and I would trade messages back and forth for almost 3 years. And so the whole setup was to meet at a movie theater, because where's the one place that my mother actually took me out in public.
But we also came up with this plan that I was going to lose my virginity to him. We both went into the men's handicap stall. It was the first time that I had ever seen a penis other than what happened with my grandfather in the molestation when I was 9. He couldn't get an erection. But we just called it, okay, I lost my virginity to him. And it just kind of felt like that was weird. It was kind of shameful.
Shameful. Well, yes, you were trying to have sex in a public toilet, so it's not exactly romance, is it? And it's also a bad thing that he couldn't get it up. I'd say it's probably a good thing, since you were being passed off to the world as a child, and probably looked like one while you're being dressed up like Cinderella. Like I said in episode 1, Grandpa's reaction to the accusations was very weird, and pointing the finger at 4-year-old Gypsy for touching him inappropriately, bizarre, just stinks. Whereas from her side, it's the perfect allegation to make, to elicit yet more sympathy. After all, in this day and age, it's considered unacceptable not to believe someone making those sorts of allegations. Not that I'm advocating for victim blaming or anything like that, but blind acceptance with no questions asked is the toxic byproduct of the Me Too movement, something which starts out with great intentions, but winds up being co-opted by special interest groups in the gender-driven politics.
I message him and I'm like, my mother did not like you. He's like, okay, well, what now? So that's whenever we start going into other plans. I started to really feel like it was either her or me.
Well, you're still here, so I guess we can conclude without too many spoilers that you prevailed. And that's the conclusion for episode 3 on Gypsy's prison confessions, and now it seems like we're moving towards the final act, the commission of the deed itself, plotting and committing the murder, and I presume the subsequent arrest and conviction. Thank you everyone for hanging out and watching this along with me. I'm actually really enjoying this, and I'm looking forward to getting on the next installment, so I hope you'll join me here for that. In the meantime, please take a moment to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, drop a comment, I do read them all, and I also stream every Friday night, commenting on various internet oddballs on my other channel at Hatman on YouTube and Hatz on Rumble, Hatz with a Z. Links in the description. I hope I might even see some of you over there, but it's not for the faint of heart because we're all degenerates. Good-natured degenerates, of course, not the bad kind. Anyway, thank you once again. I hope you've had fun. I certainly have, and I will see you, I hope, next time. Take care. Bye-bye.